remember they were throwing paper in the air, and it was just this mayhem. I looked at him, I said, well, what's going on? And he said, well, you know, this is where they work, this is what they do. This is what happens every day.
I was just like thrilled. I was like, this is something I'd never seen before, you know. Eyes got wide, and I was like,
Everybody looked like they were in a riot, but there was some kind of order to it, and I just had to be part of it.
From that moment, I went literally back to my workplace and gave 2 weeks' notice without having a contact, without knowing how I was going to get on the floor. I just knew this was where I needed to be. I needed to be on the floor.
The biggest pits in the world are here in Chicago. The Chicago Mercantile, the Board of Trade, Board Option Exchange, even the Chicago Stock Exchange. There's no place else that you have 9,000 pit traders all in one city. Nowhere else in the world.
this is the bastion of capitalism. Player of railroads of the nations. Stacker of wheat, hog butcher of the world. That's what we do here. You know, if Chicago's known for anything else, let it be the trading capital of the world. This is LaSalle Boulevard, all the way down. Summertime, it's absolutely beautiful. All the trees full up. This is where trading started.
I mean, why do we have so many traders here? I think it really is an entrepreneurial spirit, and it's a very competitive environment. I know the guys on the trading desks in New York are also very competitive, but it's not physical. Chicago, it's physical.
It was based on gentlemen's rules. It was based on integrity, honesty, mutual respect. But the business in the pit was the furthest thing from gentlemen's rules. I mean, you saw the worst in everyone.
When you're standing there and somebody spits on your face, that, you know, somebody gets inadvertently stabbed with a pen, or somebody steps on your foot or spits on you, like I said, and it's like something that you don't even really address. It's like completely, you're immune to it. It's like, it's silent, it's quiet in the chaos.
The physicality in the pit was ridiculous. We got to the point where at times the pit was so physical that before the start of the opening bell, we could pick our feet up off the ground and not fall.
August Doyle! 29 Kyle Stern. Eddie! 14! Eddie! 17! Beast Red Bay! Peter, Cardinal on that one. 75!
The open outcry process is, you know, 80% bravery. I mean, it's a perspiration game. You have to have nerve.
Some are brilliant, some are totally eccentric, some are totally nerdy, some are just flagrant jerks.
At the Board of Trade, the interview process that I had to become a member, and I remember the one question they asked me, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to make a lot of money and leave.
You never found an ad in the paper. You know, it was all people who trusted you. Found a friend of the family, got you on there because you were sharp or you had potential.
I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. My older brother's 4 years older than me. He'd already been trading maybe for about a year or so, and he thought I'd be really interested in it. I played sports in college, and my brother said that trading in general is kind of like sports, you know, and when the bell goes off, boom. Like throwing a touchdown pass in Michigan Stadium with 100,000 people with the cheering. Just that adrenaline rush. I mean, it's insane. It's not a normal job. I mean, it's not a normal job where you're not getting a salary every 2 weeks. You don't have this health plan. You don't have your 401k. I mean, you have to do it yourself. When you've had a taste of the money, you don't want to go back to be in the corporate world. I mean, I just couldn't see myself working for a firm and just getting reamed on by a boss. Probably, seriously, I'd probably tackle him or something. I'd be like, you know, who are you?
Hey, Chuck. This is Creedence Clearwater Revival. That's my acronym. This is my brother's first album, The Endless Summer. And I got it for, you know, colorful reasons.
You got your little groups. You got your Southsiders, you got your Northsiders, you got the Jewish clique, you got the Irish clique, you got the Italian clique. I'm Polish, I don't think we have a clique. You got to mesh and find your niche. There's a lot of uneducated people, which doesn't matter. You know, the uneducated people have a tendency too to make good money. When you're in there from 8:30 to 3:15, it's all about money. One guy's misery is one guy's, you know, profit. Sad to say, but that's true. Not that I take advantage of that, but maybe I would.
By the middle of the 19th century, Chicago was emerging as the transportation hub of America. Trade routes by rail and water converged on the city, giving birth to its famous stockyards and slaughterhouses, and a town hall market that would later become known as the world's first modern futures exchange. On April 3rd, 1848, 83 merchants founded the Chicago Board of Trade. Futures trading provided an opportunity for buyers and sellers to manage their risk against unpredictable price fluctuations. Too many cattle this year? Well, the beef prices are low. Drought in the Midwest? The corn prices go higher. If both the buyer and the seller can agree on a price ahead of time, we call this a futures contract. This agreement allows them the opportunity to protect themselves against paying too much or selling for too little. So who are all these guys yelling and screaming, and what are they doing? As the exchange grew in popularity, at times there'd be more sellers than buyers, or a demand with no one there to meet it. Entrepreneurs saw an opportunity to take advantage of this imbalance, working in the middle as both buyer and seller. This allowed them to profit by speculating with their own money while filling a vital need for market liquidity, or the ease with which goods can be bought or sold in the marketplace. These early speculators became known as local traders. As their role expanded over time, they became major players on the trading floor. In 1981, the Chicago exchanges introduced metals, energy, currencies, bonds, and stock indexes, attracting more interest than ever before. Soon, calls were coming in from all over the world. The modern local trader might trade hundreds, if not thousands, of contracts in a single day, often getting in and out of trades in seconds, each time risking their own money in the hopes of profiting as they hold their own against the expanding market.
It was a live auction
40 on 2.
where the price of the commodity that you were trading was determined by who would pay the highest and who would sell it at the lowest price. When I would pay 5 and someone else would be willing to sell it at 5, we would have a match. We would acknowledge it, check it in the pit by saying, you know, I bought so many contracts from you at this price. And then we'd write it on our cards. We'd end up handing in our cards to our clerks, and the clerks would take it to our clearinghouse.
Yellow coats were designated for clerks. Other than that, all the different colors and different designs that you see down there was to make you stand out among the crowd. There were guys that had checkered jackets, red, white, and blue jackets. Anything that made you stand out in your area of the pit because you needed to be seen.
It's a misunderstanding that traders manipulate the price that they're responsible for prices going up or down, and it's completely false. The supply and demand drives that. If there's too little supply and demand is high, well, prices are going up. If there's too much supply and demand is flat, prices are going down. The traders are just in the middle. All they're doing is catching something for 1/10 of a penny and passing it on hundreds or thousands of times a day.
It's actually funny because when you first come down here, it's overwhelming. You can't figure anything out. And quickly you kind of discover, well, that guy's a broker, and he's an order filler, and well, he's a big trader. All of a sudden, people take on this personality, so you get an idea of what's happening. Well, then you get some confidence and some arrogance, and you decide that you're going to do this because you've been practicing and you think you can do it. Well, that's really when the learning starts. Because that's when you realize how incredibly complex and oftentimes scary and difficult and hard it is. These guys are professionals, every one of them.
Each and every day to go in there, trade your own rent money, not know whether you're going to make money or not, is terrifying to a lot of people. And I found it to be very, very scary.
I don't have any clients. I don't have any customers. And it dawns on you, nobody trusts you to do what you do except your family. And so in a lot of ways, I'm a hedge fund manager of my own family's worth, money. And they trust me not to fuck up.
The nature of trading is buying for one price and trying to sell it at a better price, period. You get in there, you make your first trade. You know, if you get whacked 10 times in a row, you pick yourself up by the bootstraps and you do it again.
We started at 7:20. By 7:30, we were dripping wet of sweat. Fortunes had been made and lost in the first 10 minutes.
Everybody had their ups and downs. I had bigger swings due to the size I traded.
It really depends on how much you put on. A 5-tick day, a 5 move from 1 to 6, you can make millions of dollars depending on how much you put on. 100 lot, if you put 100 lot on in the euro dollars, it's worth $2,500, okay? There are guys that have 2,000 lots on. So, you're talking about $200,000 a move, 1 tick. So it moves 5 ticks, you're up $1 million. If it goes 5 ticks against you, you're down $1 million.
If you traded a few contracts at a time, your risk was limited. If you went and took on the market and bought everything available, your risk was enormous. There were traders that went into the pit every day and risked a house.
You know, it wasn't unusual for guys to be making 20, 30 grand a day. It wasn't unusual for them to be losing 10, 20, 50,000 a day. And a lot of times you did that on one trade.
Whether people like to admit it or not, this is a form of gambling. How is it not? If you buy a stock, you're buying the idea that that stock's going up, right? I mean, that's what we do, and options are the same way. I mean, there is a gambling mentality to what we do down there. It's gambling to go down there every day because you are risking something.
But the rewards were phenomenal. If you took the biggest risk, you're either going to get crushed or you're going to be the happiest man on campus this afternoon.
I think somebody once said that floor trading offered blue-collar guys a chance to get in with the big boys. Commodity trading only has 2 purposes. 1, to make a lot of money. 2, to manage a lot of money. And the faster you make big money, the faster you can do things with your life. And I think that's what it's allowed me to do. The numbers for successful guys are fleeting because you're only as good as your last trade. It's what you don't lose. It really is. I mean, there's been guys who've made more money than me, but for some reason or another, it was taken away. And so I think the more successful trader is the guy who can keep it for, to the 10th, to the 9th race. The good traders know when to make money and leave. I tell you, I went to work every day. And when I wasn't at work, I was a miserable human being. I mean, without a doubt, I wanted to be back at work because I knew how much money you could make. And so when I go away on vacation, it didn't matter what I spent because I knew I was losing more not being at work, you know. And then somebody said, but you could be losing money. And I go, you know, you never think of it that way. Everything can be traced to being around the best traders in the free world. I would watch these guys trade in my pit, and I would say, if they're buying, I'm buying. If they're selling, I'm selling. But I also wanted to see, what was important to me, how they handle a loser. It's not what you make, it's what you don't lose that determines how much money you have at the end of the year. I would watch these bigger traders and I go, how do they handle the stress of having a losing trade? What do they do when they had a losing trade?
I literally just learned by watching the most successful people in the world.
Certainly the numbers that come out of these places, how much money people make, can be staggering.
Yeah, my assistant, who's pretty junior, she makes a little bit more than my brother does. My brother's a cardiac anesthesiologist. My assistant is 3 years out of college and likes to drink beer.
You had a bunch of young kids making more money than they knew what to do with, and they found things to do with it.
Such as?
You know, I mean, anything that you can think of that you could abuse yourself with, that was part of the lifestyle. There were 5 guys that rented a bus to take them to Michigan golfing. They hired a couple girls to go on the bus with them. And by the time it wasn't me, I want that out.
My primary over-the-counter customer base was made up of traders. They're fun guys. They're just fun to be around, and they're also, they're nuts. They're crazy. I had a customer who, I rang him up and it was $172. He said, what kind of number is that, $172? Make it 100 or 200, one or two. I said, well, which should I make it? And he said, I don't know, let's flip a coin. So I flipped a coin, he called it, he lost $200. We did this. Every time he came in, for 3 years, he never won. We had customers flipping coins, he wanted to inspect coins, he never won. Every time, it was like 2 or 3. I'd just say, what do you want to make the spread? He would do that, he never won. Every time he would overpay, he'd take the money out of his pocket, slam it on the counter, and leave. Loved the game. Loved the game.
Joey called me and said he wanted me to deliver some cigars over to the pit and that he'd meet me there. And he told me to bring 100. So I went over there and he met me and brought me onto the floor. And I knew a lot of the guys because I was doing business with them. Some guys across the pit were like going like this to me. And so Joe said, they want a cigar. Throw a cigar to them. So I reach in the box and I throw a cigar across the pit and the guys are reaching up and grabbing the cigars. So I threw them everywhere. I was just throwing cigars all the way across the pit. And whoever it is that's responsible for security in the pit or whatever it is came up to me. And as he approached me, he said, I'm the guy who's supposed to throw you out of here. And he said, but I'm not going to. Can I have a cigar?
You know, every afternoon, the bond close, we would all prepare for it. It's like, okay, you know, bond close is hitting. When you watch those guys coming off the floor, I mean, you could see their moods. You could tell good days, bad days, you know, like life-changing days. We saw those days. But it was palpable. I mean, this was not like, you know, 5 o'clock and everybody punches out and walks out of the office.